Hi, this is Kelly. It's day 11 of my 100-day juice feast, and I just finished my run. I've got a hat head, so I'm not taking the hat off. I apologize for my red face, but it was gorgeous today in Iowa, and I could not miss the opportunity to get out there for a run. Um, I felt pretty good. I did have a little bit another sort of enema issue earlier. I have noticed that quite a few other people have been prolifically defecating since starting the juice feast, and I have not. I do have a lot of gurgling, like especially the last couple days. It's just like gurgle, 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 constant. Like where if you were in a quiet room or a movie theater or something, everybody'd be able to hear it. But it didn't seem to be producing anything. So I thought, well, let's try this coffee enema everybody's been talking about, and I tried it, but it didn't really accomplish any goals. And I read all the instructions. I feel that I did it correctly. I also didn't feel like any big surge of energy or relief of anything I was feeling afterward. So I don't know. I don't know what happened with that. I did feel a little bit dizzy, and I'm kind of curious if anybody who's done this can comment about this, like how much of the caffeine do you take into your system after we've all gone through this massive caffeine detox for those of us who are addicted to caffeine? How do these coffee enemas impact that? Um, but anyway, so that was a little disappointing, and then I was afraid to go for a run afterward because I thought, oh, what if it's going to have a delayed effect? So I waited about 45 minutes, and then I thought, well, I'll take a chance because I did not want to miss the opportunity to go out for a run today, and it was fine. Anyway, again, still not weighing, and so that's really it for my update. So I told you yesterday that I was going to talk about one of my topics today, and it is using journaling and juice feasting really to try to get at food addiction. So I have been reading this book. It's called Buddhism and the 12 Steps Workbook by Kevin Griffin. It's written with alcoholics in mind, but I think that, I mean, it certainly can be used, and I'm going to be using it in this way to get at some of my issues with food because I have 100 days to really explore some of this stuff. I want to take advantage of it. I mean, I do not want to go through this again. I mean, I may do another juice feast again, like Todd and Trisha Baker are, where they're doing it to sort of further along their goals or enhance what they've already experienced. I mean, I never want to be where I was when I started this juice feast ever again in my life. I mean, it was a definite low point, and I've battled food addiction for my whole life. I mean, looking back on it, I mean, I'll admit, I also used to be a smoker. When I was in college, I smoked for probably, let's see, I think I started in 1987 and I quit in 2001, however many years that was. And I also am a recovering alcoholic, and I've been sober for 14 years. And this thing with food has stretched back before either of those two issues ever got started. And it has been the biggest battle that I have had. And I have not been successful. I was what I thought was successful for about a little over a year back in like 2014. Um, but I really I really didn't have acceptance around it. And what I mean by that is like when I quit smoking, I thought my life would be miserable and I didn't know how I'd live that way. But now that I don't smoke, I'm very grateful for that because smokers are like social pariah now. And I certainly never smoked for the smell. That was just one of the unfortunate side effects that I had to live with, and the asthma that I developed as an adult because of my smoking and the chronic bronchitis and all of that. So I'm glad that I don't experience any of that anymore. When I quit drinking, one of the things, I mean, I'm also grateful that I'm an alcoholic because I never really enjoy drinking per se. I mean, I don't want to really get into those issues, although they are still relevant, I think, with my food. Is that I never really wanted to be social. I didn't drink to be social. I drank because I didn't want to be present. I didn't want to experience my life, whatever was going on, and I was trying to find something to distract me from it. And if it could end up in the end leading me to being unconscious, then that was an added bonus. So but one of the things with that was that I always felt awful. Like I had a hangover every single day for probably 1998 to 2004, every day. And many, 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 many days before that, but it was literally a daily. So, and it didn't seem to matter if I would, there was very few times when I actually had controlled drinking, but if I did, I still woke up with a headache. I still like was it groggy and could not participate in my day. Um, I also, if I had even one drink, no matter how important something was to me, it was no longer important to me anymore. I missed an opportunity to see Maya Angelou, when I was in graduate school because I had one beer before I was supposed to leave. Anyway, so those are the things that I don't miss, and those are the things that I'm kind of grateful for because that's the physical reaction that my body has beyond just the alcoholism. So for me, if I could drink normally, if I could only have one drink, I would still wake up feeling terrible the next day, and I would still feel like lethargy the minute I had a drink and not want to go see Maya Angelou. So those would still be true, even if I could drink normally. So I'm grateful that I don't drink normally. Because if I hadn't bottomed out with that, I would have just continued on and I would have missed opportunities and I would have had those miserable days after New Year's and stuff like that. So, what I'm saying is, I have gratitude around being an alcoholic. I have gratitude, not so much about having been a smoker, but I'm certainly grateful that I don't smoke anymore. With food, I just can't seem to get there. Like, I feel self pity. Like, there are some days where I can get there, and I feel like if I hadn't bottomed out with food, if I didn't have so much difficulty like keeping my weight in check, I probably wouldn't worry about it that much. And then I'd be poisoning myself for the rest of my life and probably taking years of what could have been like really enjoyable, productive life off of my time span, because I didn't know that I was doing it. It's only when you really are in a bad, bad, bad place that you open your mind up to things that are out of the mainstream that other people would never try because they're getting by. And so there are some days when I remember that and I'm grateful for it. And I think if I didn't have this compulsive overeating problem or food addiction or whatever you want to call it, I never would have sought out like plant-based solutions, and I certainly wouldn't have sought out juicing and that kind of thing. And so there are times when I'm like, yeah, I'm grateful for it. But then I go somewhere and I try to go out to eat and there's nothing I can find on the menu, and I try to travel and I can't find anything there, and I just get so angry that I can't be normal just while I'm on vacation or just for the weekend or just for Christmas. And I hate it. I hate that because oil is one of my triggers and it is absolutely pervasive. You pretty much cannot go anywhere in the world without everything having oil in it. And so I feel just helpless and powerless so much of the time. So, one of the things I'd like to work on in these 100 days is that self pity, that resentment. I want to get to a place where I always feel grateful that I have a food addiction, because if it hadn't been for that, I never would have found what I've found, and I'd never be living the life that I get to live now. And I want that to be consistent. I mean, of course, everybody has a bad day now and then, but I want it to be most of the time I'm really grateful. And I'm so grateful for it that it gets me through the hard times, like when I'm traveling. So there's the first exercise that I'm going to try. Um, it is essentially looking back over your whole history and thinking back as far as you can go to try to look for I guess patterns in your with food and your eating where you realize that maybe it's been problematic. Now, if you already think that you're a food addict, I think that this is a good exercise because you can write it all down and then you can refer back to it when you're tempted later to either cheat on the juice fast, or when you're done with the juice fast or feast and you're back to eating food again and you're thinking, oh, just this one time or just for this one thing, go pull this back out again and reread just how bad it has been. How much has this affected you your whole life? And for those of you who don't think you have a problem at all with food, if you're still watching this, you might be really kind of wondering, and this is a really useful tool for that, because then you can kind of answer the questions. And if you can answer all the questions and you go, no, those things don't really apply to me, then maybe you don't have, maybe you're fine, you know? So anyway, here it is. I've written it out. So again, you write this, kind of like getting at what it was like. So go through in detail every case where you acted on your like food addiction, and the results weren't good. So start with your earliest memories and consequences. Did you ever have emotional outbursts? Um, Waste money, damage relationships, waste professional opportunities, isolate yourself. Some of these, I've written a bunch of these things in myself, so I just kind of got the general idea from the book, and then I've kind of added in things that are sort of food specific because this is an alcohol specific book. Many of them I've heard other people talk about on YouTube channels and on some of the other whole food plant based forums I've been on, and many of these are things I've experienced myself. So, how did it affect your emotional states, causing depression, anxiety, anger, apathy, mania, irritability, or any other moods? Physical effects, um, being overweight, lethargy, high blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, stroke, memory loss, autoimmune disorders, sleep apnea, skin conditions, um, irritable bowel syndrome. Anybody who's had that probably has been stuck in a bathroom, afraid to, travel. Have you ever been afraid to leave the house out of fear that you were going to poop your pants? I mean, I had a little bit of that today when I was going for my run, but um, anyway, these are real issues that it impacts your life, and you're doing it to yourself, you know? Where was I? Has it limited your dreams, your goals, your activities, adventures, travel, running, dating, education, career advancement? Like, have you ever couldn't ride on a roller coaster because you didn't fit in it with your kid or your partner? There was an experience that my husband and I had. We were in Mexico and we were going to ride on these zip lines, and we saw a whole bunch of people in front of us. They were riding on them together, like two people on the tandem. These were 50 feet off the ground. I mean, these were over the tops of really, really tall trees, and it was scary. And so we were like, oh, maybe we could ride on it together, and then it won't be so scary. We can like hold each other. And we got up there and we're like, we'd like to go together. And the guy was like, he didn't really speak English very well, but he just kind of looked at us and then he was like, no, you're too big. And he basically told us we couldn't ride on it because we were too big, like the two of us. And there was a weight limit. Now the weight limit, in my defense, I think was pretty small, or low for American. My husband's 6'2" and I'm like 5'5" and a half. So I'd have to be 120 and he'd have to be 175 in order for us to get under that 300-pound limit, which is what it was. And then we'd have to hold, and God forbid that the shoes we're wearing or the breakfast that we had put us over the limit. I don't think I'd want to push it up to that. But anyway, later on we had gone to an amusement park in the United States, and they had these uh, inner tubes that you could go down the water slides on together as a couple. And so the first thing we did was we looked at the sign to see if there was a weight limit, and the weight limit was 400, and we were like, yeah, make America, we're back in the United States. So but I will say that on day one of the juice feast for both my husband and I, if you combined our two weights, we wouldn't have made it under that 400 pounds. So yeah, so that's something. Yeah. Anyway, so do you ever not attend a social function because you didn't want people to see how much weight you'd gained? Like, anybody ever skip a class reunion, anything like that, because you didn't a family reunion because you'd gained a bunch of weight since the last time everybody had seen you and you just didn't want to deal with it. Um, or because you were on a diet and you didn't want to have to battle with all the food and you didn't think you'd be strong enough, or you didn't want to be around food you couldn't eat, you were afraid you'd overeat, you didn't think you'd have enough food. Oh, that happens to me a lot. I have this like weird food um, fear, like a hunger fear, that I'm not going to have enough food all the time, and it just terrifies me. Sometimes, if I think that I'm not going to have enough food on Saturday, I will like overeat on Wednesday just from the panic of it. I know, but it's real. Didn't feel well because you had overeaten. I've missed out. I one time like had canceled plans because I went on like some little bender during the day on whatever, doesn't matter. It was nasty. And then I got this really bad headache and I felt nauseous and I had to cancel plans. I mean, and my friend was really disappointed because she'd been looking forward to it. Um, or you'd overeaten the day before or whatever. So, those are some of the questions to be kind of like, write it all down, get it all down, like all of the things, all the health costs, all the financial, like how often do you go out to eat? Do you buy food and then throw it away? I used to do that all the time. I'd buy a bunch of food, throw it away because tomorrow I'm going to start over. Anyway, this has gotten really, really long, but I just thought that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through and I'm going to write the answers to all these questions and just go from there. All right, that's it for today. See you tomorrow.